Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Leather Leadership Conference's virtual series. This week, or this month actually, we'll be having a forum on people of color and leadership. I am Dominion Onyx. I am the vice chair of the Leather Leadership Conference and your moderator for the afternoon. And thank you all for joining. Everyone wave and say hello to the people. And we will introduce all of the panelists. I'm not sure if everyone sees them in the exact order on the screen, so I'm just going to go in the order that I see. And we will start with LaniRope. Is it Lani? Is it just Lani or LaniRope? And you can introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Lonnie. LaniRope is my FetLife username. So if you'd like to find me to reach out at any point, feel free to. I am a 30-year-old TNG, AAPI, BIPOC, genderqueer, polyamorous, pansexual person, which is a lot of identities and a lot of boxes that I like to touch. So I like to be all up in things.
Yes.
I am a local leader here in the Jacksonville community. I'm currently the leader of our Start Here group, which is our 101 educational group that we have inside of the city that has been running for roughly over a decade now. I also am the leader of our leather closet and our free reference library as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking time out of your what I imagine is an extremely busy schedule, because all of those identities and all of those leadership positions obviously require lots of time. So thank you so much for being here. Next up on my screen is Alpha Pup Savage. You're on mute, love. Well, you're not on mute, but we can't hear you. Okay, so we will come back to you and go to Slave Girl J.
Hello, everyone. I am Slave Girl J, or J is just fine. My master and I used to live in a semi-truck together for almost 10 years, so we have a really intense dynamic. I don't recommend for everyone, but we traveled the country as title holders, Northwest Master Slave 2016, International Master Slave 2017 and 2021, and we have quite a kink for teaching the community and expressing the way we communicate and creating space for loving community. And we have big service hearts. I really think truly service is one of our kinks. Play and kink is not a huge integral part of our dynamic. However, we do get our kink on. It just doesn't mix with how I lead in community. But we have a great time being on staff for Northwest Leather Celebration and helping out different community projects like Mass International and being here on a lovely panel with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up is Daesha.
Hi there. I'm Daesha, based out of LA OC area in Southern California. I describe myself as an avid volunteer. I am I have my hands in a lot of different pots. I'm the production designer for Black Leather and Color. I am Sake's chief operations officer. I help run a lot of their behind the scenes management. And I also facilitate my own events. I host a lot. I host my own lunch, and I help out with a very large LA-based queer positive group. We try to run charity events every year. The last time we ran an event, we actually raised about $10,000 for the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center. So I tried to do a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and I'm sure you've seen me around. And I also now I am the new design lead for MTDA's Master Slave Conference as well. So
wow, another super busy life, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Next up is the fabulous Spankcake.
Hi, everyone. I'm the current International Miss Boot Black, and as Alpha Pup Savage would say, just International Boot Black since Boot Black this year. I am also based in LA, and that Sake, which Daesha is involved with, was my sponsor, and that was actually a huge, huge vote of confidence for me to be able to run. So I definitely am so happy to be sharing the same space as you, Daesha, right now. So, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And last but not least is Alpha Pup Savage.
Hello, hello. Okay, we still have a...
Nope, you're good now. We can hear you perfectly.
Are you getting me? Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Alpha Pup Savage, your current IML 46. Identify as he, him. Well, I guess you could say I'm a leader in the leather community. I won in May, and in retrospect, I do it my way. I try to be different. I try and be all inclusive, and I try to make sure I make everyone feel that they can, like, I'm easy to talk to. I'm also a pup. So back in San Francisco, I am one of the alphas for the Pets of Service in San Francisco. It's around 35. So we do a lot of fundraising for LGBTQIA organizations. And I try to spread that love around the world as well, of guiding and incorporating the pup and leather community. And like Spankcakes said, I got to give my love to the Boot Blacks as well. That's what we were doing this weekend, having a great time. So, I mean, that's just a little bit about me. I just love being around my peoples.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you. And thank you to everyone for taking time out of their schedule, either as one of our panelists or for joining in the audience. And thank you all for joining us for what we hope is a fun afternoon. So a little bit about the genesis of how we got to our virtual panel. There'd been some asks that, we provide some virtual programming because everybody couldn't make it to LA or I was going to say Fort Lauderdale. That's my dream location because, Fort Lauderdale is my dream location, but Atlanta and other locations. So they were asking for virtual programming. So LLC listens, leaders listen. And so we lead by example. And so we wanted to have these series as a way to answer that call with some of our most successful classes. Last month in September, actually a little more than a month ago in September, Master Plain Jane did a great session on burnout in the community that was extremely well received. And so that was the start of the series. This is the second in the series. And then our last one will be in January with Master Vari called What's Your Why? And that will be leading up to the Leather Leadership Conference, which will be in March of 2025 at the Hilton LAX. Hold on, don't get me telling the wrong dates. It is March 14th through the 16th in Los Angeles, California. And we look forward to seeing all of you there. So we're going to start with an icebreaker question, and then we're going to delve into some questions on our topic, which is people of color and leadership. So anything that I'm missing? All right. So first, this is an icebreaker. Who wants to tell us, maybe one of two of their kinks and how that impacts or bleeds over into your leadership life? We don't really have to raise hands. You can just start talking.
I'll start.
Okay.
Well, for one, I identify as being submissive. While not a specific thing, I think it goes hand in hand in being in service to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And besides spanking, obviously, as one of my kinks, objectification is a big one for me too. And in that sense, I feel like I definitely enjoy being who I need to be to the people, to the community. And that has really, really served me in many ways. And I feel like it keeps my focus on, separating the persona and my personal life. So it's been kind of a learning curve, but it's just been an amazing journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Who wants to go next? Lonnie, you're talking. I see your lips moving, but there's no sound.
I really need to remember that this has a mute button and my phone has a mute button.
I do it all the time at work. I'm just talking away, and then like we can't hear a thing you said. Like, great, because I just saw world peace, So you're gonna have to go back and hear that. So go
Right.
ahead, Lonnie.
So as a switch, and as someone who identifies as a little,
Mhm.
as a little switch, it can be really interesting to see someone who can like top from like a little letter space.
Mhm.
And so with that, it means that I also tend to be just very thorough, and very hands-on when it comes to the way that I lead groups. And then
Mhm.
because of the way that I identify as a little and as a switch, there are a lot of spaces or a lot of people who have come to me specifically that were just like, wow, this is such an incredible space, specifically because it wasn't ran by like a dominant specifically.
Right.
And they're like, we feel so much safer because you're just like a switch and like a little. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm just like, here, you know?
Excellent. Excellent. I will say that I have noticed that some of the best leaders that I have had the pleasure of interacting with would consider themselves either switches or on the S side of the slash. And I would just say, as a leader, I encourage everyone. Every position does not have to be held by someone who identifies as a dominant. And in fact, that thoroughness that you talk about is one of the things that, to me, is a hallmark of the S side, because you're in service to so many other things that it sort of builds a mindset. And so I encourage, all submissives or those on the S side of the slash to explore leadership, because we need competent people regardless of what side you're on.
Yeah, submissives really like get things done, especially because it's built into the way that a lot of them end up engaging in their dynamics.
Yeah, and I feel like that should be on a t-shirt. Submissive shit, get shit done. Hold on, hold on. We'll write that down.
Look, another opportunity here.
Exactly. Say that for later.
Yeah, we have a friend. We have a friend who's
else?
Shirt. We have a friend that has a t-shirt where their pyramids are being built, and underneath it says slaves get shit done because they identify as a slave.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
So I'll go since I'm already speaking, if you don't mind. I definitely have a kink for organizing things, but I have also a very specific kink for like helping people see that they are capable, because there's like a little bit of sadism in the fact that it's uncomfortable to be seen. It's uncomfortable to feel like you can do a thing, especially when as leaders in community, people see us and they go, oh, that person really knows what they're talking about. They're leading these things and they see something in me. So there must be something there. It helps people like really believe that they can do the thing. And I have a pretty intense fetish for that empowerment piece.
Excellent. Anyone else?
I guess I'll go. Oh, sorry.
You can go. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Daesha.
Okay, so actually, when I first started transitioning out of more of a private role and just participating in kink behind closed doors, I actually met my sir, and at the time he was doing parties, and we had a really good connection. But it started with, I see how much time and energy you're putting into all these community events. How can I make this more efficient so that we can spend less time doing all these things? And that's actually how I automated a lot of our systems, so that instead of taking 4 hours a day in order to organize something, we could actually push it out in under an hour instead. And that just led to me organizing the volunteer team and vetting everyone and meeting everyone face to face, and could just kind of that just kind of opened the door for me. And that's actually where I really found my passion for being in service to community.
Excellent. And Alpha Pup, go ahead.
All right. Well, I identify as a switch. I love impact play and sensory. And so one of the things that you were talking about earlier, I feel is in order to be a good leader, you also need to know how to follow. And so I think I really bring that into my leadership, because I'm a project manager by trade. I'm also one of the co-chairs for accessibility for North America for the company that I work for as well. So it does lead to the fact that, you know, you need to be able to listen and understand and be able to take other people's ideas, not just dominate conversations, but really take stuff in. And then sometimes giving other people the opportunity to lead and you follow. Because and that's along with impacts. So I'm gonna switch. I can give some of that power away, or you know, be in power at that time. And I think it's very important, either way you look at it, to really incorporate those key terms and behaviors into your leadership life, because people doesn't want anybody just telling them what to do. They want somebody there who also listens to their ideas,
Right.
you know, and encourage them to be the next leaders. And I think if you're too one way, then you know, you don't give others the opportunity to lead and know and gain those skills that they need to be the next leader.
Excellent. Thank you all for that. It's interesting to see all of the various perspectives. And so as we start into the main bulk of our questions, we want to ask each of you about the communities that you represent or lead. The idea here is that I'm hoping that people will see themselves in one of the communities that you represent, because, you know, we're an expansive community. And so, Lonnie, why don't you start? Because, you know, you've given us a bunch of different communities, and tell us a little bit about those communities.
Yeah, so I was gifted a lot of really amazing opportunities by people inside of my local community, where they poured into me when I first joined in this community. So I was given opportunities to serve and volunteer at FIRE, which is Florida's intensive rope experience, down out of Orlando, Florida. I was given opportunities to like help and assist with events at the Woodshed Orlando. I was given opportunities to volunteer at LLC without actually being technically a volunteer. They were just like, hey, we need someone to tape down wires. And I was just like, I'll tape down wires. And so through me just being there and being open hands, I was gifted a lot of opportunities to get access into a lot of spaces. And then through experiencing those spaces, I was able to meet amazing people, such as the people who helped found April with me, which is Asian Pacifica Representation in Leather. It is a group that was actually born out of LLC. And it is specifically for anyone that does not necessarily feel, you know, that they have found themselves inside of some of these leather communities based off of the way that we identify. There are a lot of leather communities that are just open to anyone and everyone. And then there are a lot of communities that are specific to like the Black community, such as like the Onyx Pearls and the Men of Onyx. And they've done amazing things. And we were like, wow, you know what? We found a bunch of Asian people sitting inside of this one room, and we're all sitting there like Spider-Man, like, oh, what's going on, man? And we sat down together and we were like, this could be something. Like, we could be something. Like, we could help start this process to where there's more representation for people that look like us inside of the leather community. Unfortunately, but also super fortunately, the Asian community is incredibly expansive, which we have learned continuously over and over and over again as we have met more and more people who fall under the umbrella of considering themselves Asian, and we were gifted amazing opportunities to meet them in person. With that, I was also able to meet Domina Atua and join House of Kush and be gifted really great opportunities to serve and be a part of classes and education through HOK. And early on, I found a love for 101 education and really wanting to help foster new people to come into the community in a way that is safe. So I tried to create groups, and I failed spectacularly because I had no idea how to do this. And so instead I joined on to leadership with leaders that already had groups up and running and we're doing the things. And I was like, oh, wow, this is how you do this. Heard. Cool. Got it. And I fell into an amazing leadership opportunity through Start Here Jacksonville. And now there are multiple chapters throughout the country. But it's all based around in 101 education. And through that, we also started a free reference library because we were inspired by the Woodshed having the Carter Johnson Library there. And we were like, we need something like that here locally for us in Jacksonville. So we wanted to offer that as well. And through going through all of these cons, it's just opened my mind to all of the possibilities of things that like we could have in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is so large and so expansive and so huge that like we need those things here, especially with the way that like it's real sketchy out here in a swing state, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, those are just some of the organizations that I am affiliated with and pour a lot of my time and heart into.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And as we go on, two things. One, as the chair of the Onyx National Council, I just have to note that although a majority of our members identify as Black or African American, Onyx and the Pearls are open to all people of color. So just want to say that.
Oh,
It's fine. I understand. And that is a perception that we'll address.
I completely misunderstood. I am so sorry.
No apologies are necessary. I'm not mad about it. I mean, I respect that is your perception. And I'm just saying, you know, I just want
Just every time I've seen a Pearl, it's just a very handsome or very attractive Black person. I was just like, I like this.
And speaking of very attractive Pearls, it's the Goddess.
Hello.
Hey, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
I'm the Goddess. I'm currently International Ms. Leather 2024. I see that my spouses are here. The incredible Spankcake and Alpha Pup Savage. I am one of the co-founders and current president of Onyx Pearls Leicester Southwest, and co-director of our local Mass chapter, Mass Austin. I'm just delighted to be here. I'm trying to think what else I could say. I've co-authored a couple of books. What's most passionate for me is creating sustainability in our community, growing it in ways that are healthy. You know, I say all the time that we have taken out of the blueprint for happiness, that white picket fence theory, and we've taken the pickets and decided to beat each other with them. So we got to throw that blueprint away and make our own magic happen. And that's what I'm all about. So glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the question that we were asking the panel, and LaniRope led that off, was talking about the communities that you represent or lead. So you can expound on that for a few seconds.
I am a member of the if you talk about the big umbrella word, the BIPOC community. And so running an Onyx Pearls chapter with some incredible, powerful women. We have a huge amount of diversity in that group, including Dr. Judy Tolwing MacArthur, who is one of our Indigenous folks, and wanted to come out and make sure that the Indigenous folks knew that they could be a part of this as well. We have people of AAPI heritage as well. I'm personally Black, mostly Nigerian and Korean. And so I try to bring that to the table as well. Having this title has been really interesting because it was really impactful sharing this with Spankcake. We made history. Thank you, sis, by being the first two international title holders of Asian descent for this title. And our BIPOC community has really come together holding these international titles at this time. Showing this visibility, this representation is so important. So those are the communities that I represent. Also, you know, I'm queer, you name it. I'm there somewhere. I'm dipping a toe in.
Exactly. I think that goes for all of us. Slave Girl J, tell us about the communities that you represent and or lead.
All right, so I identify as a slave. I'm also a person of color, and delving into what my genetics means, I recently found out that I'm actually mostly indigenous of Latin descent. And so I'm figuring out what that means for me. But also, I was raised by queer, poly, BIPOC title holding parents. So like I've known this community has been my family my whole life. And while it was rare in the 90s, it's much less rare these days because lots of you lovely people are creating lovely little humans that know pretty much at an age appropriate level what you do and how you give to the community. So I get to be in that sort of TNG / old soul space because I've really been at this my whole life, but I'm at the very tail end of TNG. And so I use my identity as a BIPOC person, as femme presenting, as queer, as leather identified, to show folks that they can identify however they want to at whatever age they want to. And there's lots of ways to just express being in this community, no matter what your experience, your background, your age. So I'm on the board of Mass International as our membership director and also our assistant regional rep director. So I'm helping the Mass International organization foster their chapters. So if anyone wants a Masters and Slaves Together chapter nearby, please hit me up. We are an international organization, like the name describes, almost 100 chapters all over the world. I'm also on Miss Rhonda's assistant, who's the sole producer of Northwest Leather Celebration, which holds one of the regional master slave titles and the person of leather titles and boot black titles. So anyone interested in running for a title, please also hit me up. So I spend a lot of my time doing exactly what I just said, trying to get folks to come to a place that feels safe for me and expressing how much I love these places and being the backbone to help the communities that I'm trying to foster keep on growing and be organized and sustainable for years to come.
Excellent. Daesha.
So a lot of my work nowadays is with Blick and with Sake. And for Blick, I am the production designer, and it is largely a tool to amplify voices for the BIPOC community. That's something that's really, really important to me. I don't always want to necessarily be in the spotlight. I do take ownership of the things that I like to do, but one of the things that really brings me joy is being able to be like, this person also does a lot of work. This person can also speak to you. This is also someone that might be someone that you could relate to. And ultimately, that's how we keep passing the torch, so that we're able to see more people that we can connect to and relate to, that keep inspiring the next generation of leaders and facilitators and organizers. And I absolutely love that. Love that a lot. Big bonus that I can use my creative skill set that way. Which is also a real huge pleasure for me. The other group is also obviously Sake, which was established in 2014. And it started because our two founders, they happened to meet each other in a dungeon space. I think it was Sanctuary back in the day. I don't know if it was formerly known as Passive Arts at the time, but they met each other and they were saying, oh, well, I wish there were like more spaces for us, like so that we could find more people that look like us. It's like we're the only two Asians at the venue. And that's actually just how Sake was born. And they just decided to start doing a munch. And over the years, it's been, we're actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary this month. So I'm really, really proud of them. It's just a great group of people. But it really shows you that you don't need to have something that's largely popular or well populated or whatever it is. It just needs one or two people. Be like, we want to get together once a month. And that's all you really need to do. And from there, you just keep building and attracting the right people to you that are also equally passionate about visibility and having spaces for us. So fast forward today, they started doing pop-up parties, and now we finally actually have our own venue space to do our own events at, which is, you know, if anyone knows anything about organizing, it's always furniture and space, which is the two largest things to overcome.
Excellent, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Alpha Pup.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I represent the leather community, the BIPOC community, the pup community. One of the biggest things, the reason why I started off in service and providing a service to the community. And one of the things, I'm a resident of the San Francisco Bay Area. And the reason why I got my initial title, which was the San Francisco Eagle Pup title, 2024, which was a new title, was because I didn't see a reflection of myself in that community. And so I could either go with the flow and keep my head down like everybody else, or stand in the forefront. And I decided to stand in the forefront and say, you know, there are pups out there of color, and not just of color, but also of different gender orientations that can come out. And I wanted to create a safe space in the Eagle for those who want and feel comfortable to come out and be out. Now we have a plethora of BIPOC pups, and not just BIPOC, accessibility, and how gender identification, which I really would have been working for. And going into IML, I had that same premise. You know, the trials and tribulations of being a person of color in the leather community is not all, you know, roses and petals. You know, you face a lot of dismissal. You face a lot. And one of the biggest strengths I have is being part of Onyx Northwest, which helped me, you know, being around my brothers and being around people of color, is I could step on that stage. And I know there are people out there that will see a reflection of themselves in me. And hopefully they will come up and step up and be leaders in the community. Because when I went for IML, there was only 3 that looked like me. And, you know, I was the only one that made top 20 out of those 3. And we need to see more. And I wanted to see more. And it wasn't a reflection globally of people of color taking titles internationally in Europe. And now, after this year, we have quite a few. London, and Netherlands, and Gran Canaria. And so there's a lot of people of color now snatching titles, the European titles as well. So it's great to see, you know, the influx of POCs stepping up and taking those leadership roles. And that was one of the really reasons why I did it. And it was over this weekend when it really hit, when one of the boot blacks stated that they were going to go for IML this year when they announced that. And they looked at me and they said, well, you inspired me to do that, because I ran with a pup title. I'm the first ever to win IML with a pup title. And they are going into IML with a boot black title. And they want to, well, he wants to actually do the same thing and be the first boot black with a boot black title. And it hit me when you said, well, you inspired me to do that. It goes beyond color. It transcends. When you're doing something different from the norm, it really reflects and it really reaches people. And I'm just happy. I'm happy that I said on that stage, if one person, just one person, will come back next year and they saw a reflection of themselves in me, then I have accomplished what I came to accomplish. And that moment, I felt that accomplishment. So I'm just going to keep going and keep pushing and keep doing, because if it's working for one, I'm hoping it's working for more.
Excellent. That is amazing. Thank you so much. And Spankcake, our the third member of our fabulous international title family.
So I definitely represent the BIPOC community, the Asian. I go with the initials APISA, but I know there's like Lonnie said, it's very expansive. So I want to be very inclusive. As well as the neurodivergent community. Those are two that I'm very open, and they're probably fairly obvious. I also am disabled, but it is not a visible disability. And so I advocate a lot for accessibility, especially in bootblocking. I do hope that we see more title holders with visible disabilities, not that that is a requirement, but I do think there is something about what we've been talking about. The visible representation really does matter. And as much as I can do, I would love to bring attention to that. It's on top of that, I do represent the bootblock community. And while that is not necessarily by itself, I'm not sure like a specific category. Many of us are disabled. Many trans folks are bootblocks. In fact, historically, it was like queer kids in Europe that were doing a lot of bootblocking. A lot of minorities, it is just something that's always been. And so it's important for me to really represent, for me to be the first Asian IMsBB. Now, I recently met Leslie Anderson at Bootblock Roundup. She was the first one in 1999. So this is a whole quarter century later. I mean, we could even say, sorry, Leslie, that she was crowned in the late 1900s. We are full in 2024 now. And a lot of that, I never thought I could be a bootblock, because they're really never, you now see a lot more female bootblocks, but to see an Asian female bootblock, I just didn't see myself as a bootblock because of that. And so I'm so honored, and I hope I can represent that very well.
Excellent. So, this sort of ties in beautifully to the next question. To everyone watching, we shared these questions ahead of time, but the way that they're sort of mapping together has worked out really nicely. Everyone has talked a little bit about intersectionality, which is the idea that we have these multiple identities. So I think leading into our next question, talk about how you navigate that intersection. Spankcake, you talked a little bit about neurodivergency, having a disability, and one that is invisible, and being a person of color, and even more specifically, a person of Asian descent. Talk about the impact of that intersectionality on leadership, and some things that are important for those of us who aren't part of your particular intersection to know as we move through this world.
It's interesting, because I put a lot of thought into this, and especially I feel like not all of it is accidental. There's so much when you're trying, especially I'm a second generation, so my parents are from Korea. And between the culture clash of being American but not quite American, or seen as American. In fact, it's interesting. I'm currently in Amsterdam right now for Take a Stand. And everywhere I go, people start speaking Dutch to me. And I made a comment to somebody saying, it's so heartening for people here to see me as one of them. Whereas in America, I'm constantly defending myself as an American. And it's just so interesting. I'm sorry. And then can you repeat?
It's just a sort of stream of consciousness. We're talking about how our particular intersection informs sort of our worldview. And, so that's where we're kind of going.
Well, and so one thing is these intersectionalities to me are actually a gift, because allows us to do is see multiple perspectives of different issues. And so for me, as a boot black, I can empathize and speak to whoever's in my chair. And I have so many different points of view, so many perspectives. It's not just one perspective. It's the perspective of my parents. It's the perspective of me, someone from LA. It's perspective as someone who's neurodivergent, someone who understands what it's like to be living in a physical world that is not doesn't necessarily fit me as a body, and to me, I think as a leader, it's definitely a superpower where we can really affect a larger amount of people because we have that understanding. And I think the more we have these discussions and roundtables, the more you can see how we actually share so much in common, even if it might not start from the same place.
Interesting. Anybody else want to add to this part of the conversation?
Yeah, I would love to. So Spankcake, you gave my brain so much food for thought. When I view my own intersectionalities, I'm often seeing it from the outside's point of view. I am meant to be a very specific way for each way that I identify. And when they cross paths, they're often conflicting messages of how you're meant to be, right? So I grew up with probably my birth parent being the darkest person within 50 miles of where we were, a very suburban white neighborhood of Portland, Oregon. So when we shifted from living in LA to where I was so early in my life, I was seeing from everyone else's perspective how I was supposed to behave as a person of color, as a feminine person, as a queer person, as a leader in my own right. And the way that I identified, I chose very early in my life. So I got to see how folks treated the intersectionalities that my parents had and how I did not want to fit those molds. I did not want to give anybody a reason to put me in those little boxes. So I was constantly trying to prove I didn't want to fit in those boxes, and I was never going to. And so it leads me to have a lot of compassion for when folks are afraid to identify a certain way because they don't act like the way they're supposed to. Whoever has defined the way you're meant to act, Black, white, BIPOC, just any of those things. So I find myself when I'm having conflict or misunderstanding or just not seeing quite eye to eye with somebody, I'm constantly opening my mind to go, what are my assumptions about the situation or this person, and how can I learn from this person rather than try to change that person? Can they change me rather than me change them? I'm trying to lead from that mindset because I spent so much time being told you have to be this way, you should not be saying that, doing that, acting that, and it made it so uncomfortable for me to be anywhere. I couldn't be comfortable in white spaces, I couldn't be comfortable in Black spaces, I couldn't be comfortable in places where I just felt like I should be comfortable there. And so instead of shying away, I'm trying to just like be there and go, this is how I am. I want other folks to see there's other ways to express all of these identities, and I want to be safe for you.
I love what you just said about when you meet someone, you're looking how they can change you rather than how you can change them. I love that concept of that worldview. I think that's something that we as leaders, I think whether we express it that way or not, we're all sort of embracing that one way or another. We're meeting people where they are, really, sort of. Anyone else want to add to this conversation? This is a little different because usually when we have this session at LLC, we're all sort of sitting around in a table and it's sort of like double Dutch. Everyone just is sort of jumping into the conversation. So it's a little different doing it virtually, but I'll just keep calling on you or feel free to jump in. And the goddess, you got your chin. I feel like you're ready to. I'm ready to tag you in.
Turn double Dutch. Okay.
Exactly.
So, wow, this is a beautiful conversation. I've also one that's been straddling the fence in many ways, being biracial, etc. And growing up, I was always never enough of something. You know, I wasn't Black enough. I wasn't Asian enough. Especially, you know, I had huge issues with my Asian heritage because of the way people that were that had melanin were treated in Korea, and all the deaths that happened to biracial children, and that they were abandoned because there was no way to raise them. I mean, you can't even have Korean citizenship in Korea because it's passed down through the father, and so all these military children were not even second-class citizens. They weren't citizens at all. So it took a while for me to even embrace that side of myself. For me, it was one of those things. Well, you don't like me. Well, I don't like you twice as hard. That's, you know, and so it took me a long time to embrace all of myself to the best of my ability. And I found that straddling that fence is how other people see me. I don't see it that way. I'm just me. Involved me coming into communities, much like Slave Girl Jay said, and being and not having that chip on my shoulder, and being a bit more. And it was counterintuitive to me to be humble in a space, especially where I felt like I was going to get rejected, and allowing them to have space to kind of tell me what the issues were so that I could try to address them with kindness and authenticity, and not view the rejections or the snide comments or their own personal ideas of who I was going to be ahead of time. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, you're nothing like I expected. You know, once you have a conversation with me and we can connect with our humanity, good things happen. But that involved me having to put down my own barriers, which allows me to be hurt. And that is so counter to who I used to be. But when it comes to intersectionality, I think, and also it was really hard for me the idea of being representative of anything. That's a lot of weight on someone's shoulders. Oh, you know, I am, you know, at this point, I guess I got a sash that says I'm a leather representative, you know, but at the end of the day, that's a lot of weight. If you're taking this seriously, to say that I can go out there and be a model for what it means to be X is huge. And I didn't want that. Because I thought I'm going to make a misstep and I'm going to mess this up. So it took me a long time to take these things on and say that. And really what happened was I decided to speak very freely about how flawed I am. That's where the change came for me. So when I go into these spaces, I am not the leather ambassador. I'm the leather person that messes up all the time, and let me tell you about that so that you know it's okay. I am Asian, and I've had issues with that. You know, I'm not here to you know, to rain on your parade, but let me share some of that so that we can have those conversations and vulnerability, and you'll know that I didn't step out of the womb dressed in rubber and latex and leather, completely flawless, and this is what you need to aspire to be. Far from it. The only thing I promised my slaves when they decide to serve me is that I'm going to hurt them and I'm going to make mistakes. That's my big promise. And that sounds awful. But if they know me, they know that I'm going to try to fix it. That I'm there for the long term and that I'm accountable. But yeah, so for me, intersectionality has been being a little more quiet, not trying to take up all the space, and trying to find connections where I can. And in the spaces, being authentic, vulnerable, and showing them me.
Yes, that is amazing. I love that. I love that. The idea of leading through vulnerability is something. I'll just stop talking now because I'm not going to ever call anyone's name, but you know, we're all picturing someone who is not that. So I'll just move on to Daesha and say anything you want to add to the conversation.
You know, this I really identify with colorism. I've had to deal with that a lot growing up. I didn't look Asian enough to really fit in with the Asian groups, and I didn't quite look Mexican enough to fit in with the Latino groups at my school. So I struggled with that a lot, but it's really allowed me to see things through a different lens. And speaking to that point, when I was actually at the Master Slave Conference, just at the end of August, I actually had some people come up to me and they asked me, I just happened to miss it. It didn't mean anything. I don't know if I was just talking to someone and just didn't pay attention at the time, but I actually missed the BIPOC meeting for S-types that was taking place at the Master Slave Conference. And some people actually approached me later in the evening and they asked me if Asians felt welcome in BIPOC spaces. And that opened up a really large conversation because it's a hard thing when you see all the fractions between the different communities, even the fractions within the Asian community are always going to be there. And I have to recognize where those feelings come from. I'm a fourth generation American. And so sometimes what is a little bit of a disconnect for me that I have to understand is that a lot of my members within the sake group, for example, are actually first and second generation. And their perceptions of Japan and Japanese history is very removed from me and my family's experiences here. But I have to have empathy from where that comes from. And I have to understand where that comes from. And it's not necessarily anything that's against me. It's just something to recognize that's a part of the history, to understand where other people are coming from. But in terms of Asians being in BIPOC spaces, it's one of those feelings where, am I taking up too much space sometimes? Which is unfortunately something that we have to ask ourselves when we show up to a POC space, because they asked me if they felt it was too, I don't know, like it was more aimed toward the Black community versus the general BIPOC community, which I've seen, unfortunately, some of the dissension there, right? Because some people genuinely feel like Asians don't really fall under that umbrella. And a lot of that gets perpetuated by, unfortunately, stereotypes in politics and the perception of the, Asians are the perfect immigrant and things like that, and creates all these wealth and class divides, even if they're not true. They're bad stereotypes. It still kind of reinforces these negative feelings that we have towards each other, which is very, very unfortunate. But the other added issue, it becomes a colorism issue, because some Asians don't feel they look Asian enough to actually fit in those BIPOC spaces as well.
Excellent. This conversation is just so amazing. I'm really enjoying myself, and I as the moderator, I'm always like, I want to say something, but I'm going to refrain. I love this conversation. And Lonnie, I want to give you the last word here before we pivot to our current political climate.
So my experience with intersectionality has always been really convoluted, because I, at my very basis, am a child of the military. So I was not able to grow up inside of like my cultural home, where I would have been able to like really dive into like my like ethnicity, the way that like I actively present to the world. And instead, I grew up on the East Coast, which is completely on the other side of the country from Hawaii. And so when people experienced me for the first time on the East Coast, if I was with my dad, who is white, there were no problems, no issues, because I had the protection of my father there. But the way that like the world interacted with my family when it was like my mom and like my brother and sister and I, versus my dad and my brother and sister and I, were vastly different. And my dad there were many, many problems between my parents' marriage that we're not going to go into on here. But my dad was so like against my mom that like he wanted to like even linguistically code her out of me. And so like I was never allowed to like learn my native language or to like really experience it or anything to that capacity. So then when I really started getting into the world and engaging with people, the first like racism that I really came across and experienced at an attack was like racism that was meant to be towards a Hispanic or a Latin person that like didn't make any sense to me. And I was just like, I don't understand how this is racist because it doesn't apply to me. So like, I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be because it was my very first time ever experiencing it. And so like experiencing racism for an ethnicity that like I'm not actually was like a weird experience to like go through that like really shaped the way that like I saw colorism and the way that I saw like the way that people show up and exist. Because I was constantly just being misidentified across the board. And so like with that, the way that it's kind of affected me is that like I have now tried to in some ways create, as a military child, create spaces where I am absolutely adaptable. Because I move to so many places, I have to engage with so many people, I have to live in so many different educational systems that like finding a way that I can chameleon myself into these communities was like the safest way that I could exist. So like with that, I think I've also effectively tried to build that into the groups that like I end up building inside of the community, is that they are just the identities that I take on and the groups that I grow are groups that are just supposed to hit like anyone and everyone across the board, whether it be like age demographic or ethnicity demographic or like gender identification or sexual identification. Because like I have never been pegged correctly off the bat. And so like I've lived my life in this weird place of ambiguity. And so now like the way that I show up in this world and try to create spaces is create spaces that are kind of built in that way, so that people can kind of show up in a way that they want to identify and they want to present in the way that feels most authentic for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I just want to keep saying thank you again. Savage, you want to add something to that?
Yeah.
Please.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to drop in a minute because I have to head to the airport. But
okay.
From
international title holder and all.
Oh, they keep me busy. However, when it comes to because I'm Afro-Latino, right? And so when I deal with a lot of racism, it's my proximity to whiteness. And when I look at POC and my POC experience, not all POCs are treated the same. And I think that's what I'm hearing from others as well, like Lonnie and Spank and the Goddess, to where the further away the proximity you are, from my experience, from whiteness, the more people tend to ignore you or dismiss you as compared to like my counterparts who may be well lighter than me. When we walk in a room, the people gravitate towards them. And then a lot of times I'm the second thought or the afterthought or not even thought of at all. They will step in front of me to speak to that other person like I'm not even there and don't even address the fact that I'm in existence. And I went through a lot of that. And even with this title right here, if I don't have that sash on, it still happens. It happened this weekend. That happened. I was told we were all having a conversation. And one had a title on and he was full decked in leather. I just had my vest on and I had leather on, but not the full. And we both asked the question. He looked over and he said, I'm going to talk to the leather man. Oh, okay. I was like, my title trumps his, but okay. It's okay. And I didn't say anything. I just left the conversation. It was the person that was standing next to me when they finished having that conversation that addressed it. Who was a Caucasian male. He said, do you realize how disrespectful you just were? I said, can you? And then he proceeded to read my patch off my back while I'm standing there. And this is International Mr. Leather. I can't believe you just dismissed him as he was nobody because somebody has the sash on over here, and it was a Caucasian male to another Caucasian male. And the guy actually wound up leaving out of embarrassment. I did not say a word.
Mm-hmm.
He left out of embarrassment. But it still happens to this day, to where if I'm not in your face, because I was in the situation there to where I'm not here to take away from the boot blacks. I'm here in support, not here to be the forefront. So I'm not going to come in no full regalia, no slash. So I'm taking attention from the people that this is all about. I'm here to support them. I'm here to be there in service to the boot blacks. So I'm not going to be running around with the sash on and trying to be like, oh, I'm IML and I'm this and I'm that. However, sip of respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're all around one another, we're all having conversations, then we should respect one another as individual and as human, regardless of your sash, regardless of the color of your skin. We are all part of the same community. And I know we're about to go, but there was one question you had that this really brings to light. And this is like, one of the things that could be most destructive about our community is our own community. It's not the outside forces, it's the divisions within that separate us and we lose power. But when we together and we united and we as one, regardless, we have more power to do the powers that be that we need to fight, because we're under attack and they want to divide us and they want us to be divided. And we can't do that. We need to stay solid. Whether, I don't care if you part in that whole, you queer, trans, you are male, cis female, male, it doesn't matter. We all can live in the same spaces. We all can congregate, work together. We all can be one.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all have our separate, you know, I think it's important if trans, you know, they have a club that really support one another, just like Onyx exists, just like the Pearls exist, but they're also open to others and they're open to other communities to be part, to learn, to progress. And that's where we need to be with one another. And, you know, Goddess is one of the people that is just amazing to me, because being her sash husband, you know, and when we're together a lot. People don't know, but we are together a lot, you know. And so it's Spankcake, you know, we had a great evening last night, you know, our first, you know, Boot Black Summer Party. And it was amazing to see how we all on the same page. We all want to head the right direction with one another. And we can do it. We just need to take the time and stop dividing each other for either our color of our skin or what our genitalia or how we identify, because those are the things that outside our community are using to divide us.
That is excellent. And since you have taken us there, we're going to switch our order. And no, this is perfect. It's a conversation, you know. So let's talk about the some of the biggest threats to the community. So Alpha Pup went first. Who wants to go next? Talking about from their perspective, what are the biggest threats to your/our community? Go ahead, Goddess. You're on mute, love.
Division and strife. And this inability to take the time we're listening to respond rather than listening to understand. And it's how we handle these situations that are. I'm gonna give an example, something that happened to me fairly recently. I was at an event. I won't name the event, and my slave was looking at some electro toys. And the individual that was helping her, the vendor, said, "Do you want me to try this on you?" And she said, "Well, I'm owned, so I have to go get my owner." And they said, "Yeah, go get your monkey and come back." Yeah, that happened. And so she came to me after she said, I wouldn't say that, but she was so flustered. It was so shocking. So she came to me and we walked out, and then she told me what happened. And I sat with her for a little bit because I needed to figure out how to not throw hands. Okay.
Right.
So I had to sit with that for a minute and then try to figure out what to do. I ended up deciding to approach them individually so that I could try to have a conversation and make sure I didn't misunderstand in some way what was going on. So we went back and we asked them about it. And they said, "Oh, I call everybody monkey. I've been calling people monkey all day. I didn't know it was you that I was calling a monkey." And I was like, okay. If that is true, and I'm going to push the I believe button. Don't run around calling people monkey. There is so much about this that is not okay. And he apologized. He went down it was actually pretty spot on. I was feeling pretty good about what he was saying. "Oh no, I did not mean it in offense. It's just something that we say as a family. Now that you brought to my attention, I won't do it." And then things went bad. He started talking about, "Well, would it have been okay if I called your slave a monkey and not you?" I'm like, "No, still not okay." Then he goes, "It's so hard to keep up with the words and what's right and what's not right in this." And then, and people want to be so PC, and I don't know how to be PC. My family tells me to keep my mouth shut. And I'm like, your family's telling you right. Then he went into how he has friends and family that are Black. Then he went, it was just one thing after another. And I thought, okay, this is not something that I can handle individually and try to bring peace. It had to go to the producers. Because even though I am not one that wants to burn everything down when something goes bad, I believe that these things have to be handled. So I went to the producer and talked to them about it, and it was taken care of. But at the end of the day, if it hadn't been me, somebody that's been around for a while, and he had said that to somebody else, they might have left our community. If it had been somebody else, they would have said that the whole event was unsafe. There's just so many different ways this could have went. But yeah, this gentleman, and then he said something about indigenous people. He called them Indians. I said, well, we're kind of moving away from that, and we're saying these things. Oh my God, here we go again. There was so much that was problematic in our. But in those moments, we have to find a way to build bridges. Now, obviously not with him, because he was not there to figure out how to be a better human being, but how the event could handle this in a way so that it could be salvaged. How to make sure that the event producers have things in place so that they can vet their vendors a bit better. These are lessons that can be learned to create a safer space for us all. So I think that when we go into situations, trying not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, finding ways to mend those fences and create more strength is important. Now, if the producers didn't do it right, then we got to continue to escalate till we get the results that are necessary to keep our community safe. But in my opinion, our inability to listen to each other, our inability to mend bonds when they're broken, if the parties are willing, and our inability to forgive, and when it's possible, and it's not our job to forgive, by the way. I want to make sure that's right. That onus and burden, you get to decide if you want to do that or not. But creating safe spaces and limiting the amount of division is important, because as long as we're divided, we're not as strong as we can be. And we need each and every one of us to realize we're a part of one big community and that we're under attack.
Amen. I'm just going to start calling on people. Daesha. Daesha's like, "Oh no, I told you I don't like to be out in the forefront, and yet here you go calling on me again."
Oh my gosh. Honestly, like, that story kind of took me back. You're gonna have to remind me what the question was.
So we're talking about the biggest threat to either your community in particular or our community as a whole.
God, I have so many thoughts. Actually, one particular answer I think would be more appropriate for the follow-up question that you have after this one. So I'll just table that.
Okay.
But I just really feel like too many people right now distrust each other. it just seems like, for all that there is an overwhelming sense of positivity and community support in what we do, one of the things I like to say is that when we are dealing with someone that is intent on being disruptive or toxic, that one person affects the most people in the entire community. It affects the maximum amount of people around them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like never just dealing with the few, right? So when you're dealing with someone that doesn't want to be supportive, that doesn't want to create unity, that wants to create division and fraction and create all this competitive behavior, it's never just about their single interaction with one person or one group, because their behavior ultimately affects everyone collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, people tend to think things like colorism and these other behaviors are okay. And it's just because they felt comfortable enough to do that. They felt comfortable enough to do that. They felt like to an extent they're going to be protective or there will be no consequences for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really bothers me. I cannot overstate how much it bothers me. I think what also, I think the reason why this disrupts me so much is because I feel like there's this general idea, this general concept of, it came up on Facebook the other day, I think by Will Weaver, and he was talking about toxic positivity
Mm-hmm.
in the community.
I remember that post. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it really resonated with me, because I feel like sometimes we frame discussions around these difficult topics and poor behaviors as we need to be above the behavior and be quiet about it. And there is this feeling of, well, we need to ignore it and hopefully it'll go away. Or maybe someone will say something. I'm not saying that anything should have been done differently in this scenario. It's just that I feel like, specifically within the nature of our politics right now, we're seeing more and more people act in ways and they think it's just okay to do. I feel like to an extent we need to be more okay with calling out things like this, just to shut it down. Because I don't know. I feel like I'm entering an area where I find just certain things just absolutely not acceptable. And I know that a lot of people have this attitude, oh, well, we don't want to be judge, jury, and executioner. I just don't buy into that argument anymore. I think that there are a lot of people that, quite frankly, don't need to be in our spaces, and they're not really entitled to them either.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Listen, speak on it. So, Slave Girl J, looks like you've stopped, so hopefully you can join us back again. I saw that you were traveling. I'm actually super interested in this traveling lifestyle. There's a certain romanticism to it, but lots of things seem romantic when you don't have to do it every day. So
it can be romantic. It's definitely an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the goddess Indigo, you really hit all the really big main points for me of how I feel things that are barriers between connection and what's breaking apart community. So I was also thinking about folks' lack of hope in their ability to create change.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something the other day about, if you're kind of nerdy into fantasy and all that, like I am, the concept of like time travel. We put a lot of stock into the fact that if that was possible, we don't want to go back in time and change something little and accidentally make this huge ripple effect. But we don't think about how now we can make a tiny action that has a huge ripple effect on the future. Good, bad, or ugly, but we just it feels like a lot of us don't think we as people individually can do one small thing to create a bit of change that ripples into this huge tidal wave of change. So I'm really hoping that more folks can move through things like what's it when you don't feel like you belong somewhere, imposter syndrome, and feeling like because I don't fit this community perfectly, I shouldn't be there trying to make change, or even just showing up to something is that tiny change. Showed up, were vulnerable. You came here not knowing how people were going to react to you, and you did it anyway. And you don't know if somebody back in the crowd on the wall is looking at you and going, oh my gosh, that person looks kind of like me. I've never seen someone that looks like that before. Look, they're here in this space and they seem comfortable, or they seem like they're part of things. I could also do this. So I am hoping that more folks will believe in the change that they can create one tiny thing at a time.
Awesome. That's another amazing statement. Spankcake, what do you see as the biggest threat?
I think, you know, a lot of us have touched on it, some form of this in our discussion about the strife within the larger BIPOC community.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I definitely was shocked when I had my first conversation about me not belonging to the BIPOC community within the kink space or any space. It was just completely shocking to me that as small as the BIPOC community is, you would want to disclude from that. Like it was just the fact that this was coming from another member of what I would consider a part of my community, and to know that I wasn't a part of that was, it was very disheartening. So for me, I definitely think that is something that really threatens us in the sense that we are the global majority, and yet because there's been so much hurt, and you know, we're all fighting for a piece of that pie, but really, as a group, we have so much more collective power, and we are interesting, and we bring the flavor to a lot of things.
Yes,
it is amazing to see so much support for BIPOC, and I know it's sometimes feels performative, but you know, I'm glad that even those are happening. However, I also feel like as a group, you know, we are, even though we live in a country, if we're talking about the US, where, you know, individualism is, you know, is something that we take a lot of pride in. It's still a republic, you know, it's still based on representation, and we have so much more collective power as a group. And while we as BIPOC folk are great at creating space, I do think there are times when we need to take that space. That was a big step in me even running for this title was, you know, I think I was waiting for an invitation somehow, waiting for someone who looked like me to come in. I just was like, no, I'm gonna just do it. And surprisingly, this is one part of assimilation I haven't embraced before. And you know what? It's working out great. Like you go and you say, I belong here, and nobody will question you in those, you know, in the same way. We need people with seats at the table where are being made. We need to mentor people coming up to be a part of this leadership community in order to be a part of the decision making, instead of trying to explain to somebody why this is the correct decision. So I think, look, within the community, we can have our discussions. You know, I think it is fantastic to be among each other and frankly talk about these things. But in the larger, bigger community, we need to act like a force. We are, you know, the BIPOC community, we need to move together. We need to let people know that it is not to be treated. I mean, the fact that in 2024, people can use the word monkey and think that that's completely normal. To see a party who hires a comedian that says an entire, like, to say Puerto Rico is a floating island of trash. I mean, this is and they thought this was okay. Like, they thought it was okay, and people laughed at it. I mean, this is like, you don't have to be Puerto Rican to be offended by this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we need to all step.
Amen. And Lonnie, I'll give you the last word here. And this conversation has gone so well that we are almost out of time. So we're going to let Lonnie have the last word here on this particular topic, and then we're going to wrap up and then get into our contest.
So as I sat here and thought about this question over and over again, I could sit here and try to pinpoint like the small things that are happening inside of my community that would like cause strife or cause division or cause problems. But like, when I really sat down and thought about this, like the thing that's really causing the most like problems inside of like my community is stuff that's being affected at like a state level. Like, we're all just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Florida's just not easy, and like this shit's just not fucking fun. And so like, when I think at the end of the day, like what's destroying my communities, what's destroying like the people that I like advocate for, the people that I like volunteer for, the people that I like count myself a part of, it's like DeSantis.
Yeah.
is like the destruction of like
there's no way around it.
Like, huh? It's like I can't even tell you how many like trans educators that we've lost from the state who were incredible, amazing educators because it just wasn't safe to exist here anymore, or like they couldn't get their hormones, or because like they were worried about being hate crimes, like, and all of like the trans and BIPOC educators that I can't even get to come into the state anymore because they're like, no, been there, done that, good.
Right.
And I'm like, I will personally like figure out how to chauffeur you from like the airport to like a safe house, and then the safe house to the education space, and the education space back to the safe house. Like, I will put you in like the trans witness protection program. Like, and it's trying to find like ways to create safety so that we can still get access to the same levels of like education and information and advocacy in the same ways that like other states and communities can get access to it. Is like hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like, when I think about the destruction of my community, like it really it wears a MAGA hat.
Well, before we go any further, Nick says, I am a trans educator who will come to Florida. Floridians deserve pleasure. So at the end of this, everyone will be asked to provide their contact information. So Nick, you can reach out to Lonnie, and you know, perhaps we've made a connection. So keep going, Lonnie.
No, that was it. I started crying. I'm done. I'm out.
No, listen. So as we wrap up here, I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart as the vice chair of the Leather Leadership Conference. You know, it's a Sunday. It's daylight savings time, so it's about to get dark now. All of a sudden, well, on the East Coast, it's about to get dark here, you know, which just makes you feel like the whole rest of the day is ruined. And, you know, there are so many things that you as a panelist could have been doing this afternoon. And thank you so much for participating in this. And we hope to see all of you and all of our guests at LLC at the Hilton Los Angeles International Airport in March. And so with that, I'll give each one of you a moment to say whatever it is you'd like to say, you know, how people can contact you, whatever events you've got coming up. This is your moment to plug. You know, we're on the Jimmy Fallon show now, so you're plugging your latest movie, you know, how people can reach out to you. But don't go anywhere, because we want you to be here when we do the trivia contest. So we'll start. I'm sorry, you were going to say something, the goddess?
I vote, please vote.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to talk
100%.
I don't want to talk about anything else. Vote. Please use your voice. You have one, because if you don't, people will use it for you. Please get out there and vote. I know the lines can be long, but I'll tell you what, 4 years with the wrong person is going to be a lot longer. So please vote. Amen.
So we'll start with Lonnie, and then I'll just work the way around my screen. So Lonnie, tell us anything you want to close, how people can contact you, whatever you'd like to say.
I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm here just doing my best. And I have a lot of like personal experience doing things in like difficult situations. So like if anyone wants to like contact me about that or contact me about classes and stuff that I teach, you can reach out to me at like LaniRope on basically like anything. It's me on Instagram, it's me on FetLife, it's me on Facebook. LaniRope.
Excellent. Spankcake?
I'm throwing my support with Goddess. Definitely get out there and vote. If you want to contact, I will say every title holder I know is very accessible. I'm sure leadership feels the same way. Feel free to reach out to me. If we can't help, we'll connect you with somebody who can. I mean, that's one of the big benefits. I've met so many people. It's a pleasure to connect people. You can find my socials on Linktree under Spankcake.
Excellent. The Goddess.
Oh, you're gonna give me more time? I thought that was my time. Okay. I'm easy to contact. IMsL Goddess at gmail.com or IMsL Goddess at gmail.com. Or I'm on Insta as the Leather Goddess.
Excellent.
That's me. Thank you.
Excellent. Slave Girl J.
So you can email anytime, sirandgirlj@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk to anyone who might be interested in title holding. NorthwestLeatherCelebration.com. You can find Northwest Person of Leather, Northwest Boot Black, and Northwest Master Slave. The Northwest region quickly is Northern California from Fresno up, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and specifically Reno, Nevada. Don't ask me why, I don't make the rules. But happy to talk to anyone who's interested in title holding in any title track, but also specifically Northwest.
Excellent. And Daesha.
Hi, I'm pretty easy to find. Daesha on FetLife or MS Daesha on Facebook. And yes, please do vote. It is not very far away. But also, I hope to see a lot of you at LLC in March. And I really enjoyed this panel. So thank you very, very much for hosting this for all of us. It was a wonderful experience.
Awesome. So first thing, talking about voting, right? So obviously everyone's like, yeah, president and vice president, but there are federal House of Representatives and senators. There are local House of Representatives. If you live in any sort of incorporated thing, there's likely an election for an alderman or city council person or some other thing. And there are a ton of ballot initiatives out there. So, and you can Google all of those. So don't just go and just be like, I didn't know anything about this. Even though the election is on Tuesday, there is still time. So find out what's on the ballot in your area. Be informed about what you are voting about, because while who is the president and vice president sets the tone, all of the decision makings are done at a level below that. It's your congressperson, it's your senator, it's your state representatives, it's your governor, it's your city council person, it's your county council people. It's the local dog walker that makes, those are the elections that are important. Ballots about women's reproductive rights, ballot initiatives about women's reproductive rights are on the ballots. Things about healthcare, things about marijuana and other drug use, all of those things are on the ballot. So when we say vote, we're not just talking about voting for president and vice president. Then, as the chair of Leather Leadership, vice chair of Leather Leadership Conference, I want to talk to you about why you should come. So everyone on here has talked about being a leader, but leadership is more than just who is wearing the sash or who has the title chair or vice chair. LaniRope talked about how, I'm sorry, your pronouns, they. I couldn't remember because I know we had this conversation, but it was like a couple of years ago, how they came to Leather Leadership Conference and just sort of volunteered and jumped in. That's what leadership is about. So if you are a human being involved in this community, the Leather Leadership Conference is for you. You don't have to have the title of president, vice president, secretary, treasurer to get something out of the Leather Leadership Conference. If you ever have to plan or be involved in an event, the Leather Leadership Conference is for you. If you just want to come and meet cool people for a few days in Los Angeles, the Leather Leadership Conference is for you. So we look forward to seeing you then. And now it's time for our trivia contest. And the prize is a free ticket to the Leather Leadership Conference, assuming you get a hotel room now, because, you know, if you are in any sort of leadership, you know that when you are putting on an event, what is your real job? Selling hotel rooms. So if you, as long as you get a hotel room, we got a free ticket for you. So you just buzz in to the answer to the question by just putting it in the chat, and the first person to correctly state the answer wins. And at the end, the person with the most points gets a free ticket. So first question, when was the first Leather Leadership Conference held? And just put your answer in the chat. David Hawk is our winner. So I'm keeping track. The first Leather Leadership Conference was held in 1997. So David gets a point. Where was the first Leather Leadership Conference held? I'm not going to do this every time, but I'm going to do it for like the first three until it gets annoying. Oh, I've got to see who this David Hawk is, because it feels like David might be a ringer, but we'll allow it this time. So yes, the first Leather Leadership Conference was held in New York City. And not in Atlanta, Peggy, but you hold on to that answer. So next question. Name the current, hold on, let me get, because Peg put in an answer. So, and Michael Cert. All right. Name the current home of the Leather Leadership Conference, meaning where it will be the next time it is held. I mean, I feel like I should get like 5,000 answers for this one. Okay, come on, David. I see David. Come on. I see that. I see that. Come on, Nerdy Princess. I love it. The Woodshed, I feel like you have insider information, but I'm gonna allow it this one time. Very good. So, next question, other than New York and LA, name two cities where the Leather Leadership Conference has been held in our 25, soon to be 26-year history. You're half right. Well, you're right, David. San Francisco and Atlanta is correct. Peggy, you're also right with Atlanta, so you get half for that one. Atlanta and Seattle is also accurate. So everybody's joining in now. Excellent. So Leather Leadership Conference in the past has been held in San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, Seattle, of course, and then, of course, New York and Los Angeles. All right. A couple more questions. Name one of the two keynotes for Leather Leadership Conference 2025. So this you have to have been paying attention and following Leather Leadership Conference to know some of this information. But that information is out there. 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And one of them is a panelist. Our opening keynote is Sir Guy, and our closing keynote is Slave Girl J. And we are so excited to hear from both of them. Sir Guy has been very active in our chat as we move on, and Slave Girl J gave some great responses as one of our panelists. So come out to LLC and see them. So who is the current chair of the Leather Leadership Conference? And the countdown starts now. The question is, who is the current chair of the Leather Leadership Conference? No, Michael Lessert. We'll give it to David. That is correct. The current chair is Master Plain Jane. I am the vice chair of the Leather Leadership Conference. So 1, 2, 3. All right. So we have had 5 questions. And so with 6 questions, with 5 of the 6 correct answers, David Hawk is the winner of our trivia contest. But, and here's the surprise, everyone who put in an answer into the chat is being offered a free ticket, providing you show us proof that you have reserved a hotel room. So reach out to me. How do we do this the last time? Yeah, the easiest thing is just to reach out to me, and that is Dominion Onyx, DOMINIONONYX @gmail.com. And you get a free ticket to Leather Leadership Conference, provided you show us proof that you have reserved a 2-night stay for Leather Leadership Conference. So that's David Hawk, Peggy Yome, Michael Sert, Nerdy Princess, The Woodshed, even though I feel like y'all are ringers, Nick, and Just Rob. And Just Rob, you already know. I think Just Rob, aren't you? You might already be a presenter or something, so we might already have you on the list. But again, email me. I'm just going to put it in the chat as a moderator. Is going to come from 5,000 different places, so pay no attention to that. Make sure. There we go. All right. So yes, email me at dominiononyx@gmail.com. And you will get a free ticket in exchange for booking a 2-night stay at the Hilton during our event. And when you email me, you'll just need to show us the proof that you have booked. And I think that is it for the evening. Our panelists, is there anything that you want to say so let me just go back 1 second. You can find the registration link in a number of different places. You can go directly to our website, which is leatherleadership.org. You can also go to our link tree, which is linktree/leatherleadercon. You can also find it on our Instagram, on our Twitter, on our Facebook. So you can find the link to book your hotel stay there. And then when you provide that information, we'll give you a special link to register for Leather Leadership Conference for free. And our panelists, any last words before we go?
Just thank you so much for doing this. All of this matters so much, and I'm just grateful to have shared space, and I'm humbled at the invitation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And panelists, as we hang up, don't go anywhere just yet, because we got one more little piece of business to talk about. So, all right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Spankcake.
I wanted to also thank everyone who came and are watching the series, because while we are on this side of the screen, showing up is it's a lot, and you all will take information and spread it around, and it doesn't work without you all. So thank you for showing up.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And with that, we will say goodbye to everyone, and we will see you all in January for the last in our virtual series. That it's going to be Sunday, January the 19th. That's the day before the inauguration. So I am hoping that we will have lots to celebrate as we get ready to brave the cold in Washington, D.C. to inaugurate our first female president of the United States. I'm sorry if I'm giving away who I'm voting for, but here we are. So January 19th at 3 p.m., Master Vari will speak with us about what is your why. The best leaders aren't there for power or fame, but make no mistake, there's always a very personal why that joins them, that drives them. Join Master Vari as she helps you figure out your why. So we will see you in January for the last in our virtual series, and we will see you in March for Leather Leadership Conference 2025. Thank you all, and have a good night.